What's happening, everybody? Is Kalen DeBoer, SEC, ready to coach at Alabama? Lockdown SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. Great to have you guys along. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to our everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today and get $150 in bonus bets. If your first bet of $5 or more wins, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon today to get started. We've been doing our spring previews, going around the SEC and catching up with all of our great Locked On experts. And we've done Auburn, we've done Tennessee, and now we head over to Tuscaloosa, where the Alabama Crimson Tide. It is a new age, Luke, as we saw the SEC Media Days schedule came out, and it was so weird to see another name next to Alabama head coach for SEC Media Days. But welcome in our buddy Luke Robinson, host of Locked On Bama, as we preview the Alabama Crimson Tide. Welcome in, man. It's been quite an emotional offseason for the Tide.
It's been emotional for me. I can tell you that. Nobody was sadder to see Nick Saban go than me. But I'm excited. I'm excited about the DeBoer era. I mean, look, I'm not going to pretend that it's just going to be status quo, okay? Because I'm one of the ones that even in the middle of all of Saban's greatness, while so many people, and rightfully so, were just saying, this is how it's going to be forever. I knew it's not going to be that way forever. I knew this. We were in the middle of a fantastic tidal wave, no pun intended. And that era is gone, and we're welcoming in a new era. But I think that we've got a great coach to lead us into this new horizon. And I'm very happy with the way he has approached this challenge. And that's exactly what it is. But I'm super excited. And look, the players even made a comment the other day, some of them, that, there was more energy in this spring practice, the first practice they had on Monday, than any practice they've had in a while. Now, I think everybody says that when you have a new coach. So I'm taking it with a grain of salt. But I also believe there's some truth in it. I mean, look, Saban's greatness did become mundane for some. And it became maybe – I hate to say stale, and I don't want to say stale, so I won't, but whatever a synonym for stale is. And and I feel like, the players, I mean, it may have just been time for a change. And like it's a whole new thing. There's so much change going on in college football that it's probably the best time if you're going to make a coaching change to do it. Because, man, if you read that, I think we're going to talk about the Chris Lowe article. Saban said something in there that would raise eyebrows.
Yeah, and that's where I want to start, because the Chris Lowe article came out just this week and talked about the search with Greg Byrne, where he kind of mentioned, before the start of the season, hey, I may not be doing this for much longer, so you may want to have a plan. And kudos to Greg Byrne. They had a plan. They said, look, whenever Nick Saban announces he's going to retire, we're going to go into whatever DEFCON mode, whatever this mode is, and we're going to say we're going to start going down our list of coaches. And it's so funny because people get so misconstrued. They're like, oh, this coach was never offered. Oh, this coach turned it down. Look, there's a process. You have a list of about 10 coaches, and you reach out to the agent. You go, hey, put a feeler out for a guy. Would he be interested? So it's so stupid when we get into, was this guy offered? Was that guy offered? Whatever. But I thought it was very revealing that Chris Lowe came out and said that Greg Byrne, basically, it was a two-horse race. It came down to Mike Norvell at Florida State. Fantastic coach, just went undefeated at Florida State before, they left him out of the playoff and they lost to Georgia in the bowl game. And of course, Kalen DeBoer, who took Washington to the national championship. So in my opinion, you couldn't lose with either guy, but I thought that was very revealing. And then it was very revealing, Nick Saban's comments, basically saying that when they lost to Michigan, his team kind of, for lack of better terms, showed their ass, said, guys throwing helmets and all this kind of stuff. And he kind of said, look, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. And, I'd heard rumblings that somebody had said Saban met with some players after the bowl game. And the two things they were asking was, what am I getting in NIL money? And I might hit the transfer portal. And he said not one of those guys he met with said, how do I get better? And I thought that was very Nick Saban-esque of like, what are we doing this for? Like, are these guys coming here to get better and win championships and get to the NFL? So what were your overall takeaways of the Chris Low article?
Well, I had been told by somebody pretty close to the situation about when Saban ended up leaving a couple of days later. Somebody told me those exact words, that he had that meeting with several players, and the majority of the players, all they wanted to know was NIL and playing time. And if I don't, I'm going to transfer on either way. And I think that just, again, Saban's, early 70s and he's made a ton of money and he's got grandchildren now. And he probably was thinking, hey, I don't have to do this anymore. And I don't think he was scared of anybody. There's so many people saying, oh, he's scared. NIL's leveled the playing field. I don't know that NIL's leveled the playing field. We're seeing the same people that are talked about going to the playoffs. They're still the same people. Now we'll have more people talked about now because we have 12 slots. But in the end, the SEC and the Big Ten are going to make a power play. So we get more SEC and Big Ten teams in. So it doesn't really matter. But I think that he just was like, look, I'm trying to teach these guys, build a foundation for these guys for their lives. And they're talking about the right now. And the whole thing with Saban in the past has been, hey, the championships will come if you do these little things I'm talking about that are hard to do. These habits that you form. You do 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, pretty famous book, right? I mean, Saban had his own little list of habits that he wanted players to adhere to and learn. And if they do those, then the championships and stuff will come, and the fame will come, and the money will come eventually, all that. But it became so me right now that I think it sort of turned him off a little bit. Now, that's not going to be the only reason he left. I mean, like I said, grandchildren, age, just probably a little tired. I mean, Saban goes 100-0. I got an opportunity to hear him at his Saban Legacy Awards recently, which is this new award that's been going on for about 3 years. And they gave it posthumously to Bobby Bowden and also to Frank Beamer this year. And Saban actually talked about that. He hinted around at, look, that very thing. He didn't come out and say exactly what Chris Low said in the article, but he hinted around. And then he also said, I'm for players getting paid. I'm for it. I'm for them getting a piece of the pie. There's too much money out there to not do it. But we got to control something. And now you're seeing, I mean, the whole thing's just out of control. I think we were so interested in, I'm not trying to get off track. We were so interested in taking down the NCAA because they abused their power and misused their power so often that now we don't have any governing bodies and there's no guardrails. And now we don't want no. So the only thing worse than having too much government or a government that's pretty corrupt is to have no government at all and have anarchy. So that's kind of how it is with college football right now. At least it seems that way. And so I think Saban's take on it was, hey, I want to try and help college football. He actually said that at the Saban Awards. He said, I want to be here to help college football. He said, I'm an Alabama guy first and always will be. And everybody had a standing ovation. But then he said, but I want college football to thrive. I want it to be good. And I want it to get back to where we all enjoy it. He said one other thing that's important. He said, we're all here and we all talk about the Bear Bryants and coaches like that and Bobby Bowden's. He said, what do you think they would think about the state of college football right now? And everybody's just sort of, went, oh, they probably wouldn't like it very much. And he said, yeah, that's what I mean. He said, when the pillars of the sport, you don't think they'd be happy with it, we need to probably change some things.
Before we get into Alabama 2024 and the Kalen DeBoer era, one last thing on Saban. Do you think he will consider doing the he's trying to co-star.
Don't edit that.
We know he's going to do the college game day thing. We know he's going to do SEC Network and draft coverage and all that. But do you think that there's been talk about, NCAA and having whatever, like a person that's head of it, not the commissioner like we have, but like somebody who can be the head of it. Do you think Saban would consider that at all?
I think if the right role came around, he would. I mean, it would need to be a role that doesn't demand all of his time and that he can, he'd have to have several people you trust, and he'd have to have, I mean, right now the NCAA is a hot mess. I mean, that's the only way I know to say it. It's garbage. And I don't think anybody trusts it. And I think if Saban were to do it, the thing would be, it would take a lot of energy. And yeah, he's probably still got the energy. The question is, does he really want to focus his energy on that at this stage in his life? And my guess is he probably doesn't. But what he would do is say, if you get some more people like me, motivated people, to where I don't have to pull all the weight, then I think he would certainly be interested in it. Now, that's just me spitballing here.
All right. When we come back, we're going to start looking at the 2024 Alabama Crimson Tide. It's a new day, a new age in Tuscaloosa. We'll talk about that with our buddy Luke Robinson here in just a second. More Locked On SEC right after this. Well, first, I want to remind you guys, our episode is presented to you by eBay Motors. Look, passion, drive, and patience. It is what brings home the winning trophy. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. And eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, whatever it is you need for your vehicle, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you're always going to find exactly what you're looking for. And they also have that eBay guaranteed fit. Your part is going to be guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and take home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. It's eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit only available to U.S. customers. Again, go check them out. It is ebaymotors.com. As we continue on here with our Alabama 2024 preview, and Luke, we've been doing it all week. We'll do it into next week, but we're focusing on the Crimson Tide right now. The Kalen DeBoer era gets underway, and it's so funny. All the people that are saying, "Oh, Alabama's come back down to earth. Alabama's, the dynasty's over," and all this. I start looking through that roster, and I go, "Well, Luke, there's a lot of five-star talent still on this roster." So let's start with the offense. Getting Jalen Milroe back, the guy who led Alabama to an SEC championship win and getting to the playoff. Let's start with the offense. How good can Jalen Milroe look in this offense? Because, look, we just saw Michael Penix look very good the last couple of years under Kalen DeBoer. How the system looks, running ability, throwing ability, whatever. But how do you think Jalen Milroe is going to look in this offense?
Well, the Michael Penix looked great for a few different reasons. Number one, he wasn't going against SEC cornerbacks. I'm not picking on Michael Penix. I should preface all this. He also was throwing to some world-class receivers, some that Roma Dunze, who will be in the top 10 of the NFL draft. And he also had an offensive line that won the Joe Moore Award. And he's also incredibly accurate. I would say Alabama's offensive line is going to be good, not great. Probably closer to great than good, but still not great. I think their wide receivers are also good, not great. They have a chance to be great because people who listen to Locked On Bama know I love me some Ryan Williams, who signed with Alabama, and I think he's going to be absolutely phenomenal. I think the running game is going to help Alabama a lot too. Justice Haynes is going to be a problem for the SEC. I wholeheartedly believe that, along with Richard Young. I think both those guys can be good. And Jam Miller, another great running back. And maybe Caleb Odom can come on. He's at wide receiver right now. Maybe he'll be one of those hybrid guys that plays wide receiver and some tight end. Who knows? The question is going to be, if Kalen DeBoer can make it where Jalen Milroe can throw slants a little more accurately, just throw anything mid-range a little more accurate, he'll be the best quarterback in the country. I wholeheartedly believe that. Nobody will be able to outrun him, and nobody can probably throw it as far as he can. Now, it's the accuracy that's the problem. And his deep ball actually is fantastic when it comes to accuracy, but it's the intermediate stuff and also the decision making. I think part of that is also getting his confidence way up. Now, here's the thing about Jalen Milroe. There is a faction of the fan base that they just don't think he's going to ever get it. I love Jalen Milroe, and I think it's best for the University of Alabama if Jalen Milroe is the guy for multiple reasons. But number one, because I think he's got the best story. I think he's got an incredible story, and he's a freak of nature. I mean, he's almost Derrick Henry-esque in terms of physique and work ethic. And I just feel like this guy, the comeback story, the being benched thing, being really silently, tacitly suspended, all that stuff. And then coming back from that with this incredible attitude. And I got a chance to meet him right before the Rose Bowl. There was an event that he went to, and I got to sort of sneak peek that thing. And I talked to him and Terrion Arnold. I can tell you right now, they are no two better ambassadors for the University of Alabama than those two. Now, Terrion obviously is going pro, and he should. He's going to make a ton of money, but he wanted to come back. When I talked to him before the Rose Bowl, he 100% planned on coming back. Now, maybe he's not telling me everything. I understand people saying that, but you can tell when somebody's being dishonest. And I think he was being wholeheartedly honest. Nick Saban actually pushed him to say, hey, this is what you played for. You're going to be in the top 10, top 15 picks. You got to go. And so Terrion obviously went, and kudos to him. He's still going to be a great ambassador for Alabama. But Jalen Milroe is a lovable guy. He's a likable guy nationally. And he's got an incredible arm. He's super speed. His teammates love him. We just got to get him a little more accurate. I think that's it. And if Kalen DeBoer and staff can make him a little more accurate, he'll be the best quarterback in the country. And then Alabama will be very difficult to beat, despite the fact their schedule is murderous.
Offensive line, they get Tyler Booker back. You bring in Parker Brailsford from Washington, who's one of the best centers in the country. So obviously, I've seen a lot of Alabama fans have said, I think we've upgraded at center. But if the offensive line can hold up, I'm with you. I mean, give him protection. We love the dual threat running ability of Milroe. But I'm curious, you brought up wide receiver, and I do wonder, right? I mean, this is a fan base or a team that's had guys from, I mean, you name it, Jerry Jeudy to, Calvin Ridley to, I mean, like stud receiver after stud receiver. And it feels like it's been a couple years here since they've had a guy. And I like Kendrick Law. I like Jalen Hale. I like, Emmanuel Henderson, all these guys have had. Kobe Prentice was awesome. Like two spring games ago, I was like, Kobe Prentice is going to be a stud. And we're still waiting for that light to come on. But who, in your opinion, I mean, I know you mentioned Ryan Williams. They call him Hollywood. I think, he's going to play early and often as a true freshman. But, like, does Alabama have that guy? Because it feels like, man, they really need that go-to stud wide receiver.
I think that's the big question. I would love to say yes, but I mean, I think you can point out for every good thing you can say about all the receivers you mentioned, you can also point out something where they were deficient. So I think it's a golden opportunity for any of them to step up, or maybe multiple ones of them to step up and be that guy. Be Calvin Ridley, Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, Devontae Smith, Henry Ruggs. I mean, the list goes on. Alabama's receiving, I mean, shoot, I would take somebody. I mean, there's so, if I could take anybody in this class, I should say, in this group, receiver room, I would say it's Ryan Williams. Because I'm an AHSA guy, Alabama High School Athletic Association guy, that I work for the AHSA radio network. I just called all the state basketball championship games, and I do the same for football. And also I call the Alabama Mississippi All-Star game a lot. I've seen two guys in the 17 years I've been doing this for the Alabama Mississippi All-Star game where I said, okay, that is 100% going to be a pro. There's no doubt about it. One of them was Chris Jones, who is with the Kansas City Chiefs now. I remember seeing him and going, my God, at the time he was not ranked as highly as he ended up being ranked. And I said, this guy is unbelievable. And I don't know what else this guy can do, but I don't care if he goes to Mississippi State, Alabama, Alcorn State, he's going to be a stud in the NFL. And that's currently what he is. And then Ryan Williams is the other one. Every time he touched the ball, it was magic. And I hate to oversell it, but I'm gonna, because that's what I feel like he did. I've seen him in state championship games just show out time after time after time. And then the Alabama Mississippi All-Star game, he showed out. In the All-American game he played in, he showed out. I mean, he's just an incredible player. But let's also remember, he's graduating early, and so he technically should be a senior in high school next year. We're seeing that from Jaron Stevenson on that basketball court for Alabama right now. People are like, man, I wish he would step it up a little bit. I'm like, hey, he's supposed to be a high school senior. This guy's doing pretty well for a guy who still should be worried about lunchtime, and so I'm Ryan Williams. Maybe I'm overselling him. Maybe I'm getting my expectations too high. I'm just super high on the kid. After that, I would probably say, and this is where a lot of people would go, is Kendrick Law, but don't sleep on Jalen Hale at all. I think Jalen Hale's got an opportunity here. I think he can be a really, really strong receiver. He may not be, the best guy in the room, but he'll be somebody that I think that Jalen Milroe will be able to depend on.
And don't forget Jeremy Bernard, the number 3 from Washington, transferred in as well. Before we switch gears to the defense, on the OC with going with Nick Sheridan and Jamarcus Shepard?
Okay. Yeah, look, I think it's good to have a change here. I mean, I thought that Tommy Rees did a pretty good job last year. He did a fine job. But I'm ready for a change all the way around. I think this was a good move to get Nick Sheridan in here. I think he's a really talented coach. And I think he's been around DeBoer before, and I think this is great. I think the same thing about Kane Wommack, who's coming in, and very happy about all the staff additions. I'm happy about. I'm also taking a very wait and see approach. I'm not going to pretend like I have followed Nick Sheridan's career this entire time.
Yeah, it's just going to be so interesting. Again, Ryan Grubb, everybody was excited about. He's not coming, but again, they're going to stick with guys that he knows, and you got to if you like Kalen DeBoer enough to hire him, you got to defer to the guys that he's wanting to hire here, and we'll see if it works out. So when we switch gears, we're going to talk the defensive side of the ball, and as you mentioned there, we'll see what the Alabama defensive side is going to look like. More Locked On SEC with our Alabama preview with Luke Robinson right after this. But first, I want to remind you guys, this episode is presented to you by our friends over at Amazon and Fire TV. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. And that includes all of us at Locked On. And most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all the latest in the world of sports. March Madness, NBA, MLB, and lots more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos as well. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. And if you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. Go learn more at amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. That's amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. As we dive back into it, one more segment here on Locked On SEC, doing our spring previews, and we dive back into the Alabama Crimson Tide as we look at the defensive side of the ball. And, of course, bringing over from South Alabama, former head coach, I didn't realize it's pronounced Wommack. I always said Kane Wommack, and everybody's like, no, it's
I said Wommack a minute ago, but when you see it in your mind, you go Wommack. And I remember Jimmy from Mobile, who's my co-host, Jimmy Stein, he actually said this, actually, Wommack. And I was like, I'm just never going to get used to that. It's never going to happen.
Well, look, if he's got a stud defense, we'll call you Wommack or whatever you want us to call you. But let's talk about that defense, because there are a lot of pieces, man. And Alabama's very fortunate when you bring back Jahai Campbell and you bring back Deontae Lawson and Malachi Moore. They got some big pieces. I know the headline was you lose Caleb Downs to Ohio State, and that sucks. But at least you got these guys back, and you got a good core coming back.
Yeah, and you get Keon Saban from Michigan, who won the national championship and who's a good player. He's got some leadership, obviously, been around a winning program. And, you lose Kool-Aid McKinstry, you lose Terrion Arnold. Those are two that will sting, but we knew that was going to happen. A guy that I think a lot of people are excited about is Keon Keeley, and it was reported today he actually was working out at defensive line instead of linebacker, which is okay. I'm down with that. I think they're just trying to find wherever they can put him. Tim Keenan, he was interviewed today. The press was actually at Alabama's practice. It's going to be a lot more open with Kalen DeBoer than it was with Saban, and I'm excited about that. I think everybody is. And Tim Keenan was interviewed, and he said, "Look, I love the University of Alabama. Always wanted to be here. Always wanted to graduate from here." And yeah, I probably gave some thought to leaving, but they kept Freddie Roach, and I love it here, so I'm staying, and I think this is great. And there is a core group of guys like him that Deontae Lawson, like you mentioned, and Keenan, all these guys that have said, okay, let's circle the wagons and let's get back to doing this for Alabama. And I think that will help a lot. And I think Alabama fans will be excited about what the defense will have to offer next year. I mean, Jahad Campbell is another guy that I'm really excited about. He had some moments. Quindarius Robinson, no relation. He is going to be very exciting, if you ask me. This is a guy that came in highly touted. He's probably most known for touching a punt that he shouldn't have touched that led to Tennessee getting the ball back in that famous loss in Knoxville a couple of years ago. But I think he's going to make a name for himself in a very good way this coming year. So there's a lot to be excited about on that side of the ball.
I know they brought in a couple of guys, Damani Jackson, Jalen Mbakwe have come in on the defensive side, secondary. But I mean, you lose Terry Arnold, you lose Kool-Aid McKinstry. I mean, there's a lot of faces to replace back there in that secondary. How concerned, I guess, should you be with having to put some new bodies back there?
I think you should be concerned, especially in this day and age with offensive friendly rules and everybody slinging around all over the yard. I know Red Morgan, a kid from Central Phoenix City, right here in Alabama, he reportedly was running with the ones today. So if you put him with the ones and you put Keon Sabb with the ones, let's say he's going to end up there, and then you put somebody like a Damani Jackson with the one. I mean, shoot, you got a lot of newcomers back there. And, game 3, Alabama is going to be playing at Wisconsin. I just made all my travel arrangements to go there. Looking forward to jump around and all that as long as Alabama wins. But game 4, after a bye week, you take on Georgia. That a lot of people are saying Carson Beck will be the number 1 in the Heisman campaign next year. So, I mean, that's going to be a very difficult game. It's going to be a huge one for Kalen DeBoer. There's no doubt about it. But, I think the secondary is a scary – it's got a lot of potential, but it's also very scary to think about all the newcomers in that area of the defense.
Yeah, it's just a new age. We're so used to, with Saban running the team, you always had guys back there. You never worried about the secondary, right?
Well, if you had Caleb Downs back there, I think everybody would be like, doesn't matter, Caleb Downs will intercept it. I mean, that would be the attitude. It's sort of like a Landon Collins, and it's not going to be that way. I mean, I think that there's going to be some growing pains back there. Alabama's, like I said, they've got a very difficult schedule. I mean, there's very few teams in the country. They're going to go to Wisconsin, to LSU, to Tennessee, to Oklahoma, welcome in Auburn, welcome in Missouri, welcome in Georgia. I mean, God, there's not a break in Alabama's schedule, honestly. Welcome in South Carolina, who a lot of people think will be much improved. I mean, they don't play Ole Miss, and they don't play Mississippi State, and they don't play Texas. But other than that, Alabama's got all the heavy hitters.
Yeah, and that was going to be my last point touching on the schedule is that, look, Kalen DeBoer can be a very good coach, but, man, the schedule is brutal. And we know, I mean, you mentioned the road trip to Wisconsin. I know a lot of people have poo-pooed that, but that's a tough place to play. I don't care who you are. And if you struggle and you turn the ball over once or twice, you can lose that game if you're Alabama. You mentioned Georgia coming in. You get them at home, great, but still is a damn good Georgia team. And Kirby, felt like Saban was the monkey on his back, but now Saban's gone. So can Kalen DeBoer be that monkey on Kirby's back? We're going to find out. But last time we saw Nick Saban go to Tennessee and to LSU, he lost both those games. And now Kalen DeBoer's got to do that as well as go to Oklahoma. I just look at it and say, man, I don't think Bama's going to be able to go undefeated, but can they go 11-1, 10-2 and make the playoffs? Sure. I think that's the ceiling. But in your opinion, what's the ceiling and what's the floor based on this schedule?
I mean, I think the ceiling would be 11-1, and I think that's optimistic. I think the floor is 8-4. I really believe that. I believe the more likely outcome is 10-2 or 9-3. And I believe if you go 10-2 and 9-3 with that schedule, you're in the playoffs. Now, I will say, without shadow of a doubt, I'm against teams with 3 losses making the playoffs. I wish we didn't have that kind of setup. I don't think that's right. But we do have that kind of setup. We have 12 teams. And if Alabama's going to play that schedule, you can't, and you juxtapose that with a team, say, from the ACC that played 4 dented soup cans in the non-con and then, maybe only played Florida State or something and didn't even play Clemson. And they have 1 loss. I'm taking Alabama. I'm a homer. I get it. But I think most of the country would agree, hey, Alabama played essentially, the NFC East and West. And it's got to count for something. Just like Alabama in basketball, their difficult schedule is getting them more points with the seeding. If Alabama had swapped places with Ole Miss in scheduling, Alabama would have a much better record, and people would probably be saying, well, they're a 6 seed. I mean, the way it is, they're saying they're a 4 seed.
Luke Robinson, host of Locked On Bama, and of course you can find all his stuff. And of course, if Bama loses 4 games, you definitely want to be subscribed to Locked On Bama to hear all the reaction to that one, because I know
at the very least subscribe to read the comments.
It'd be super entertaining. Luke, always appreciate the time, man. Thank you for joining us, and we'll talk again real soon. All right.
All right, appreciate you, brother.
All right. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Hey, for your second listen, check out Locked On Bama or check out Locked On Sports Today, streaming for you 24/7 on our YouTube channel with all of our great experts of Locked On, plus all of our national shows covering all of their respective leagues. This has been Locked On SEC. We will talk to you guys tomorrow. Come on back as we continue our spring previews right here on Locked On SEC.